"I am her husband," he declared, his deep voice ringing through the stunned silence. He turned to the priest, eyes steady. "Please, continue with the ceremony." The church erupted in gasps. Abebe froze, her heart hammering wildly. She didn't know this man. She had never seen him before. The church bells rang softly, echoing through the grand hall as Abebe took her first steps down the aisle. She radiated beauty, her chocolate skin glowing beneath the delicate lace veil, her smile wide and bright, her eyes sparkling with dreams of forever. Each step was filled with excitement, her heart leaping at the thought that in a few minutes, she would finally be Mrs. Bong. Her mother dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, her brother grinned proudly, and the guests leaned in, admiring the stunning bride. The air was filled with warmth and expectation. Abebe reached the altar, her smile still glowing as she turned to face the aisle, waiting for her groom to join her. And she waited. 5 minutes passed. The organist shifted uncomfortably, replaying the wedding hymn. The priest cleared his throat, checking his watch. Abebe's smile wavered, but she steadied herself, whispering, "He's coming, he must be coming." 10 minutes. The whispers began. 20 minutes. Her bouquet trembled in her hands. 30 minutes. Her heart pounded painfully, her lips quivering. By the 40th minute, the truth began to sink in. Bong wasn't coming. The guests exchanged looks of pity and disdain. Some shook their heads, others whispered cruelly behind gloved hands. "She looks so foolish. He's probably with one of his women. Poor thing. She doesn't know what we all knew." Abebe's vision blurred with tears, her dream unraveling in front of the world. Shame burned hot in her chest. How could she explain this to her mother and brother, who had flown all the way from Baltimore just to see her happiest day? How could she face the co-workers who already pitied her? Her knees threatened to buckle as humiliation washed over her. And then he stood. From the very last pew, a man rose to his feet. Tall, handsome, impossibly commanding. The murmurs hushed instantly as every eye followed him. He walked down the aisle with calm certainty, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the tense silence. His tailored suit fit him like a second skin, his dark eyes unreadable yet filled with quiet power. When he reached Abebe's side, he gently took her trembling hand into his. His touch was firm, steady, an anchor amidst her storm. "I am her husband," he declared, his deep voice slicing through the silence. Then he turned to the priest, unflinching. "Please, continue with the ceremony." Gasps rippled through the church. Abebe's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know him. She had never seen him before. Yet, frozen by humiliation and desperate to salvage her dignity, she didn't protest. And so, before the stunned crowd, Abebe married a stranger. That stranger was Aiden Han, the heir of one of Korea's most powerful conglomerates, a man no one in the room recognized except the company manager. In a single, shocking moment, her heartbreak was rewritten into something she could not yet understand. The wedding that was supposed to ruin her had just become the beginning of a love story destiny had written for her. The church doors closed behind them, but Abebe felt as though her life had just been thrown wide open into a storm she couldn't control. Her veil slipped slightly as she stumbled outside, still clutching her bouquet like it was the last thing tethering her to reality. Her so-called husband, this stranger who had just declared her his bride, stood tall beside her, unaffected by the sea of shocked whispers trailing them out of the church. He gave a subtle nod, and a sleek black car rolled forward. The driver, dressed in a sharp uniform, stepped out and opened the door with a bow. "Take us home," the man said simply. His voice was calm, steady, commanding. Abebe froze, her heart pounding. Home? Still dazed, she slid into the back seat, her gown rustling against the leather seats. The stranger followed, his presence filling the space. She tried to speak, but no words came. Her throat was dry, her mind in chaos. The ride was silent. She stared out the tinted window, watching the city blur past, her reflection haunting her. The image of herself standing alone at the altar replayed again and again. The shame, the betrayal, the humiliation. Her lips parted finally, her voice trembling. Why did you do that? The man turned his head slightly, his gaze steady on her. Because I couldn't stand there and watch you be destroyed. She blinked, stunned by the simplicity of his answer. Moments later, the car pulled into a sprawling estate in the heart of the city. The gates opened silently, revealing manicured gardens, glittering fountains, and a mansion so grand it took her breath away. White marble pillars rose high against the night sky, glowing beneath the lights. Abeba's eyes widened. This is your home? Yes, he replied. Now it's also yours. Her heart stumbled. She followed him inside, her heels clicking against polished marble floors. Crystal chandeliers hung above them, casting shimmering light across the grand staircase. Every corner of the house whispered wealth, but also something else. Silence, solitude. They entered a study lined with towering bookshelves and rich mahogany furniture. He gestured for her to sit, then removed his jacket, laying it neatly on a chair. For the first time, she really looked at him. His sharp jaw, his controlled movements, the way his eyes seemed to see too much. I don't understand, she whispered. You don't even know me. The faintest smile curved his lips. I know enough. Enough to know you didn't deserve what happened today. You needed someone to stand beside you. I chose to be that person. Abebe shook her head, her voice breaking. But this isn't some game. You can't just marry a stranger. His gaze softened, though his tone remained firm. You're right, but sometimes, the strangest beginnings lead to the most unexpected destinies. Silence fell between them. The clock ticked softly. Finally, she swallowed, her voice trembling. Who are you? He leaned back, his eyes never leaving hers. My name is Aiden Han. I'm the heir of Han Corporation. And from this day forward, I'm your husband. Abeba's world spun again. She had walked into the church expecting love and left with betrayal. But now, here she was, in the mansion of a man she had never met. Her husband by fate, not choice. And deep inside, though she wouldn't admit it yet, something about his presence made her feel less alone. Abebe had always believed in love. At just 26, the young Black American woman had built a life for herself far from home. She left Baltimore 2 years ago for South Korea, chasing career opportunities and carrying the kind of determination only dreamers possessed. At her company, she worked as a junior staff, diligent, kind-hearted, and always with a smile that lit up even the most stressful days. She thought she had found love too, in Bong, her supervisor. Handsome, confident, charming in all the ways that first swept her heart away. To her, he was everything she wanted. She ignored the warning signs, the whispers at the office, the way he mocked her innocence when she told him she wanted to save herself for marriage. She told herself it didn't matter, because love would conquer all. Aiden Han was a man who didn't believe in fate, until that night. At 32, he had lived enough for 3 lifetimes. Born into unimaginable wealth, the heir of Han Corporation, he had once rejected the suffocating chains of family duty. Instead, he chose the skies, becoming a decorated captain in America. Flying gave him freedom, discipline, and distance from the ruthless world of business. But when his younger brother fell ill, Aiden returned to Korea, retiring early to assume the role he had tried to escape. To most of the company's staff, he was a mystery. A name whispered in the boardrooms, but a face rarely seen. He hadn't even planned to attend the wedding. His brother had begged him to represent the family, and so he sat quietly in the pews, an observer of what was meant to be another ordinary union, until he saw her, Abebe, standing there in her white gown, glowing with hope, only to be abandoned and humiliated before everyone. Something stirred inside him, something protective, powerful, unexplainable. Watching her tears fall broke a barrier in him he never knew existed. And so he did the unthinkable. He rose, walked to her side, and claimed her as his bride. The morning after the wedding, Abebe woke in a room that looked like it belonged in a dream. High ceilings, silk curtains, and a view of the city glittering below. But it wasn't a dream. It was her reality. She was married to a stranger to Aiden Han. Her fingers brushed the edge of the ring he had placed on her finger at the altar. A ring that should have come from Bong. The thought burned her chest. The silence was broken by her phone buzzing. It read. Her mother. With trembling hands, Abebe answered. Mom. Her mother's voice was filled with worry. Abebe, are you all right? Your brother and we were shocked. We don't understand what happened. Tears welled in her eyes again. I don't understand either, Mom. One moment, I was being humiliated in front of everyone, and then he just, her voice cracked. He married me. There was a pause on the other end. This man, Aiden. Her mother's tone shifted, thoughtful. When I looked at him yesterday, I didn't see mockery in his eyes. I saw protection, strength, like a man who meant what he did. Abebe swallowed hard. But Mom, I don't even know him. Her mother sighed gently. Sometimes, a stranger can see your worth better than the one you trusted for years. Don't be too quick to push him away. Before Abebe could respond, her mother said softly, We're coming to see you. That afternoon, the mansion gates opened, and her mother and brother stepped inside. They looked around in awe at the grand estate before Abebe hurried to greet them. Her mother embraced her tightly, whispering, My brave girl. Aiden appeared then, composed yet respectful. He bowed slightly to Abebe's mother and brother. Thank you for coming, he said calmly, his voice steady. I know this must be overwhelming, but I promise you, I will take care of her. Her mother studied him carefully. Her eyes, seasoned with years of wisdom, searched his face for the smallest hint of deception. Instead, she found sincerity. She nodded slowly. You don't know her, yet you stepped in when she needed someone most. That tells me more about you than words could. Her brother, however, wasn't convinced. Abebe, we came all the way from Baltimore for your wedding. Now you're telling us you're married to some rich stranger we know nothing about? Maybe you should come back with me. Start over. Away from all this. Abebe's heart clenched. Home. Safety. Escape from this confusion. The thought was tempting, but when her eyes flickered toward Aiden, standing there quietly, not demanding, not pleading, just there, her chest tightened. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. Think carefully, Abebe. Don't run just because you're afraid. Sometimes, blessings come in strange disguises. Abebe glanced between her family and the man who had turned her shame into something else entirely. She didn't have the answers yet, but deep inside, she felt torn in a way she hadn't expected. For the first time since the wedding, she asked herself, was this truly a mistake or the beginning of something real? After spending a few quiet days at Aiden's mansion, Abebe knew she couldn't hide forever. She had a job, responsibilities, and a life outside those marble walls. But as soon as she stepped into the office, she realized nothing would ever be the same again. Conversations hushed as she walked past. Eyes lingered, lips curved into knowing smirks. The whispers weren't even subtle. She really married a stranger at the altar. Desperate, isn't it? Probably planned it all along. Some rich man fell for her act. No wonder Bong didn't show. He must have known she was trouble. Abebe kept her head down, her hands tight around her files. Each word stabbed like a knife, but she refused to let them see her break. And then him. Bong strolled down the corridor, his smirk as cruel as ever. His presence alone made the air heavy. He stopped right in front of her, blocking her path, his voice dripping with venom. Well, if it isn't the runaway bride who couldn't keep her groom. Tell me, Abebe, how does it feel to be a laughingstock? Her heart clenched, but she said nothing. Bong leaned closer, lowering his voice but loud enough for others to hear. You think marrying some stranger saves your dignity? Everyone here knows the truth. You couldn't keep me, so you grabbed the first man who looked your way. The nearby staff chuckled, feeding his arrogance. Abebe's throat burned, but no words came. She pushed past him, her eyes stinging, and rushed out of the office. By the time she reached the cab, tears blurred her vision. She didn't stop crying until she reached the sanctuary of the mansion. Inside, Aiden was waiting, He had already been informed by his secretary, a man discreet enough to report what others wouldn't dare say to his face. The staff mocked her, the secretary explained earlier, his tone hesitant. And bong! He humiliated her in front of everyone. She left the office in tears. Aiden had said nothing, his jaw tightening, his dark eyes clouded with fury. Now he stood at the foot of the grand staircase, waiting. When Abebe walked in, her shoulders slumped, her eyes red from crying. She froze to see him there. Her voice faltered. I couldn't stay there. They all think I planned this. Aiden stepped forward slowly, his gaze softening as he looked at her. You don't have to explain. I know what happened. Her lips trembled. Bong, he made me feel so small. Like I was nothing. Her voice broke, and tears threatened again. Without hesitation, Aiden lifted his hand and gently brushed her cheek. His voice was low, steady, filled with quiet strength. Don't waste your tears on him. You are not nothing, Abebe. And one day soon, they will realize exactly who you married and who I am. She looked up at him, startled by the intensity in his tone. For the first time since leaving the office, her heart felt steadier. Not because the gossip had stopped, but because she wasn't carrying the shame alone. In his eyes, there was no pity, only a promise. That night, after Abebe had fallen asleep in the guest room of the mansion, Aiden sat alone in his study. The clock ticked softly on the wall, the glow of a single lamp spilling across papers he wasn't reading. Instead, his mind replayed the wedding. The look in Abebe's eyes when she realized Bong wasn't coming. The way her hands trembled as whispers filled the church. The weight of her silence when he stood beside her and claimed her as his bride. For the first time in years, he had acted without thinking, and the consequences were only just beginning. He reached for his phone and dialed a familiar number. His younger brother, Ji-hoon, answered groggily from overseas. Aiden? It's late. Is everything okay? Aiden exhaled slowly. I need to tell you something. I got married. There was a stunned pause. You what? Ji-hoon sat up immediately. Hyung, are you joking? Married? To who? A woman named Abebe, Aiden said firmly. She works in the company. She was supposed to marry her fiancé, but he never showed. I stepped in and married her. The silence on the line stretched, heavy with shock. Then Ji-hoon whispered, You married a stranger? At the altar? Yes, Aiden admitted. Ji-hoon's voice dropped with worry. Do you realize what you've done? The board, the shareholders, mother, they'll be furious. You're the heir of Han Corporation. This marriage, it changes everything. Aiden's jaw tightened. I know what it means, and I don't regret it. Later, he made another call. This one was harder. When his mother answered, her refined voice was as sharp as ever. Aiden, it's late. What is it? He hesitated only for a moment. I married someone today. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came her gasp. You what? Aiden, tell me you're not serious. I am, he said steadily. Her voice rose, laced with panic. Without my approval? Without even introducing her? Who is this woman? Her name is Abebe, he replied calmly. She works in the company. She was abandoned at the altar, and I couldn't let her stand there alone. His mother's sharp tone faltered into disbelief. You married a woman out of pity? No, his voice was firm now. I married her because something in me knew I had to. Because when I saw her tears, I realized I couldn't stand by and do nothing. His mother fell silent again, but he could almost feel her disapproval through the phone. Finally, she spoke, softer but laced with fear. Aiden, you've tied yourself to a stranger. You don't know her. You don't know what this means for you, for the company, for our family. I'll deal with the consequences, he said, his tone unyielding. But I won't apologize for protecting her. When the call ended, Aiden leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. His family was shocked, worried, perhaps even angry. But for the first time, he didn't care. He had made his choice. And as he glanced toward the hallway where Abebe slept, he knew one thing with certainty. he didn't regret it. Abebe sat at her desk, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to focus on the screen. It was her first full day back since the wedding, and though she kept her head low, she could feel the weight of every whisper pressing down on her. She really married a stranger at the altar. It's all an act. Just wait, he'll leave her. Bong was smart to escape. The words pierced her like needles, but she kept typing, forcing her eyes not to blur. She wouldn't let them see her cry. Not again. Then came Bong's voice. Smooth, smug, and cruel. Well, well, he said loudly, enough for the whole floor to hear. Our little bride is back. Tell me, Abebe, do you even remember your husband's name? Or do you call him Mr. Stranger at home? Laughter rippled through the office. Abebe's throat tightened, but she kept her gaze fixed on her desk, her knuckles white against the keyboard. But then silence. The kind of silence that didn't come from pity, but from presence. The glass doors of the office opened, and footsteps echoed across the floor. Abebe looked up instinctively, and her heart stumbled. It was Aiden. He walked with calm assurance, a tailored suit fitting him like it had been carved to his form. The air shifted with his arrival. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to burn brighter around him. At first, the staff only saw a stranger, the mysterious man from the wedding. But then the floor manager stepped forward, eyes widening in horror. Chairman Han, he whispered. The words rippled like a thunderclap. Chairman? As in Han Corporation? He's the heir? Abebe froze. Chairman? Her chest tightened as she stared at him, confusion and disbelief swirling in her mind. The man who had appeared out of nowhere at her wedding, who had taken her into his mansion, was this? Aiden's gaze swept the room, sharp as a blade. I hear, he began, his voice low but commanding. There has been talk in this office about my wife. Every sound vanished. Even the hum of the computers seemed to quiet in reverence. Bong shifted uncomfortably but forced a smile. Wife? You mean, Abebe? Aiden's eyes locked on him, cold and steady. Yes, Abebe Han. My wife. He took a step closer, his tone tightening. And I will make one thing very clear. Anyone who dares to mock her, whispers behind her back, or questions her dignity will answer to me. Gasps fluttered across the room. Abebe's hands shook as every pair of eyes turned toward her. Not with ridicule this time, but with stunned silence. Aiden's gaze narrowed on Bong, his voice like steel. As for you, you humiliated her, abandoned her, and tried to shame her again today. Consider this your last warning. Utter her name again, and you will no longer have a place in this company. Bong's face paled, his arrogance crumbling. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Without another word, Aiden turned and walked out, his presence leaving the office heavy and breathless. Abebe sat frozen at her desk, her heart racing. She could hardly process what had just happened. Her husband, the stranger she thought she barely knew, wasn't just anyone. He was the heir of Han Corporation, and he had claimed her before everyone. Abebe sat quietly, her fingers knotted together in her lap. She already knew who Aiden was, heir of Han Corporation, the man everyone whispered about in reverence. He had told her himself that night when he admitted he had married her. But knowing it privately, and watching him reveal it before her colleagues, before Bong, that was different. It wasn't just power. It was protection. She had seen him command an entire office, silence cruel tongues, and strip Bong of his arrogance in a single breath. And he had done it for her. When they reached the mansion, Abebe slipped away toward her room. But Aiden followed, his footsteps quiet but deliberate. Abebe, he said softly. She paused, her hand resting on the doorframe. Please, don't shut me out. Slowly, she turned. He stood there in the hallway, no trace of the cold authority he carried in the office. His eyes were gentler now, almost searching. I told you who I was, he began, his voice steady but low. But today you saw it. The side of me the world bows to. I need you to know I didn't use that power for myself. I used it for you. Her chest tightened. Why? You didn't have to. You barely know me. Aiden stepped closer, his expression unflinching. Because no one deserves what they did to you. Not the whispers. Not Bong's cruelty. And because he hesitated, then finished quietly. Something in me refuses to watch you break when I can protect you. Abeba's breath caught. She wanted to argue, to keep the walls she'd built around her heart. But his words pressed against those defenses, warm and steady. Her voice cracked. All my life, I've fought alone. Even with Bong, I thought I had someone, but in the end, I was just a fool to him. And today, her throat closed, but she forced the words out. Today, for the first time, I didn't feel alone. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I truly appreciate every one of you for supporting this channel and sharing this journey with me. Episode 2 will be out tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next episode drops. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share what is coming next.